Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Solutions to Wellness podcast, brought to you by Iron Alliance. Iron Alliance is a company that Zach and I began after our experiences in the military and football. We learned a lot from successes, failures, highs, and lows, and we now take those principles learned and put them into structured programs for any organization for leadership and team development. From that, we developed the Solutions to Wellness Expo, which is an expo that focuses on total wellness, whether that's physically or mentally, anything that has to do with wellness, nutrition, physical fitness, or personal finances. You can find it at the Solutions to Wellness Expo. So, today on our podcast, we're going to discuss a topic that comes up quite often in today's world and also in our own conversations. Zach, I'll let you take over from here.
It's free, but it's priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. Once you've lost it, you can never get it back. Take a moment. Pull your car over, stop doing your homework, punch out from work, pause this podcast, and think about what I just said. Solve the riddle. The answer? Time. Time is free, but it's priceless. Time, you cannot own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. Once you've lost it, you can never get it back. The answer is time. And that's what we're going to talk about today, Chad. You got some stats for us. Let's jump right in to time.
So this topic is often discussed, and really time management is the underlying factor of what we're discussing. We wrote a blog about it on our website, teamironalliance.com. If you go check that blog out, there are some statistics that we found from actually a study that Reebok did. They partnered with Census-Wide to do a worldwide report on how people spend their time. And the whole goal of this was to show the importance, kind of how limited our time is here on Earth and what we're doing with it, and trying to get people more active and really inspire people to truly value the days they are given. So, according to their consensus, they found that the average person lives for 71 years or 25,915 days. That is the average person around the world. A lot of these findings go into typical averages broken down by hours in the day, but the major one that caught our attention was the amount of time utilized in certain aspects of, obviously, technology. And we are in the age of technology, so it makes sense. You know, you're using your laptop, utilizing it for work. You're utilizing your phone for answering emails. Like, we are on everything we are doing right now, recording this podcast, is revolved around technology. So it makes sense. You can make the argument that, you know, you kind of need it and stuff. So out of our 25,915 days on this earth, 10,625 of them are spent engaged with technology. So in other words, 41% of our lives is spent on a screen or in front of a screen, engaged with some sort of electronic thing, right? So that's kind of eye-opening, I would say. And then you know, that the side of, well, we're in the age of technology, we need it, we have to use it for things. I agree 100% because we constantly are on it, and everyone else is as far as working and whatnot. But they also did some studies and also cross-referencing of our own studies from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed those numbers a bit more broken down on average. So if we look at the average day spent, I'll give you a few activities. Average time spent watching TV is 2.8 hours. The average social media usage is 2.2 hours. Video games, 1.1 hour per day. And mobile phone game usage is 30 minutes per day. In all, average time spent consuming video content per day is 6 hours. 6 hours engaged in videos per day. So, that is also very interesting how you get that breakdown. So, we're looking at almost 7 hours spent watching TV, using social media, playing video games, and mobile games on our phone. So, actually discussed this a little bit not too long ago. I was curious to see what the average bathroom stall time nowadays compared to 20 years ago is due to mobile phone and game usage. That would be an interesting one to find. Now, if you look, another statistic is working effectively and efficiently. The same studies showed 3.3 hours per day out of an 8-hour workday is the average. So effective, productive work for 3.3 out of 8 hours. Out of a 40-hour work week, we are maxing out as individuals our productivity at 40% per week. So that's also kind of interesting. Finally, the statistics I want to cover had me a little bit curious on some other side of things, the least amount of time spent on activities. And these are leisure activities. So average time spent per day on reading, 7 minutes. The average person spends 17 minutes exercising a day. And that's physical activity, walking, running, working out. The average is 17 minutes. So that's not doing weighted vest burpees for 17 minutes straight. That could just be going for a walk or a run or whatever. So 17 minutes. Cooking. The average time to include prepping, cook time, and cleanup is 27 minutes. That is extremely interesting because less than a half hour to cook 3 meals a day, including prep, eat, and cleanup. I mean, you're not spending much time on your food or engaged with your food. It's kind of just shows the how we are quick and to the point and don't take time to dedicate to our meals or just being a part of each other's company when we're cooking meals or whatever. And then finally, socializing and communicating other than texting or social media. So in person, talking face to face, an average of 39 minutes a day, which is not very much if you think about your entire day that's spent 6 hours consuming video. So in all, we have, out of our 25,915 days, 180 of them are given towards exercising. So about 1%, less than 1% of our lives. I don't know. Just pretty simple, straightforward statistics. You can argue both sides as far as technology or having time. Someone could argue, well, how effective are you being after 30 minutes working out anyways? I can agree with that. There's a lot of different stipulations that go into it, but also kind of opened my eyes on how to utilize and manage time throughout the day and what is productive usage of those things. Zach, what do you think about all that?
So let's break this down. That was a lot of numbers there.
Yeah.
Let's break this down. Just jump right in to the average day. So let's say we got an 8-hour work day. Let's say we sleep 8 hours. That's 16 hours right there. So we have a remaining 8 hours left in our day. What was the statistic on social media?
Social media is 2.2 hours per day.
2.2 hours per day. Video games was 1.1.
Correct.
TV,
2.8 hours.
2.8. The average work hours, 3.1 productive hours. That one, it doesn't surprise me. I think back to working an 8-hour day I mean, even now, how often are we sitting here and we get caught up in a conversation for an hour and really don't accomplish anything?
That's why we started recording them.
Yeah, that's how the podcast started. But so we're at 2.2 hours social media, 1.1 video games, 2.8 with TV time. So what is that? 4, 5, 6.1 hours right there of the 8 leisure hours just behind a screen. So that's no interaction whatsoever. That's just behind a screen. So then you have a remaining 1.9, the average American, 1.9 hours, if you break down those stats the right way.
Yeah.
7 minutes reading, 17 minutes exercising, 27 minutes cooking. So we're at 24, what is that, 51 minutes for basically, I mean, your mind, body, and your health for food. That's
when
the stats are crazy. I mean, just the average stats. Now, everyone listening is like, "Oh, that's not me. I don't play video games for 1.1 hours. I don't spend 2 hours on social media, or I don't watch TV for 2 hours." I'm saying that as I look at these stats. But I bet if we really broke down our lives, it would be, I mean, that's where this data comes from. It's the average American. So, I mean, you think about the hour you spend on Netflix, plus, you got the TV on in the morning that you're watching the news with. It's the TV time adds up. And then where does it, what was the face-to-face? 39 minutes?
39 minutes.
39 minutes of face-to-face every day. So, I mean, that adds up to your whole day. Where do we begin to, I guess, take away the negative or not negative, the unproductive hours?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to better understand, because there can be valid discussions on either end, right? You could say, well, I'm constantly productive at work, but I have to be on my computer. Like, if you write code, you're never not on the computer, right? So that is a valid point. But also, you could say, I don't want to spend more than 30 minutes on a workout every day, because then it's just starting to waste time at the gym. I could agree with that too. But I think, just having a better awareness of what the true statistics are, and then being aware ourselves of what we're doing and putting our time into, holds some validity in how we can better structure our day and time management. Because if you don't, let me give you the example of personally, if I don't go to the gym early morning, or if I miss a workout during the day, I don't go to the gym. I don't look at it as, okay, I need to stop and go to the gym. I look at it as, what did I do wrong today? What didn't I manage my time? Where didn't I manage my time correctly that I didn't get a workout in? Because, or a meal, or time with your significant other. Where did you go wrong in your day, in your time management, that wasn't a thing? An hour a day, that's pretty manageable if you structure and organize your day.
I think that's what it comes down to, is structuring and organizing. Too often we're behind as soon as we start the day. We're hitting the snooze or getting up at the last possible moment. And that moment, we are immediately getting up, getting ready to go serve other people by going to work, or, starting your day with tasks that aren't based around your own personal health, your mental development, your relationships with your family, your friends, whoever it may be.
So how do you find yourself better structuring your day, and then like the decision to get on social media? And do you catch yourself on social media and be like, oh, geez, and putting more productive I guess, habits throughout your day? What does it take for you to do that?
So I deleted all of my social media right off the bat, probably like 3 years ago. Just got rid of it because it wasted so much time. It wasn't beneficial for me. Reactivated it with you last October when we were launching Iron Alliance because it's crucial to have social media for the business.
Thanks for blaming me.
So I came back. I'm back on it now. Obviously, we got to be active. And with that, I am, you spend time casually surfing, whatever, looking at other people's profiles and stuff. I originally put you can set up on the iPhone the app restriction or whatever to 1 hour of FaceTime or whatever they call it, of app time. Did that, but then I would use up that hour. It might be for business, might be for leisure, but I would always need to get back on for business, or I would just override it and do it anyways. So that was useless. So where I'm going with this is I feel like for me personally, I had to get rid of it because without the business, I really don't need it. I don't use it for leisure. I don't, most of the stuff we post on there is driven for our, business, even if it is personal stuff. And then the time I do spend personally, it's not valuable for me to sit on there. I don't have good advice for how to get off of it other than it's a discipline thing, recognizing that, you're sitting on there for 30 minutes and it's stop. I mean, I don't have, other than deleting the app. For me, the hour limit didn't work. Deleting the app to me is the only way to just truly eliminate the social media usage.
What about when someone says, "Oh, but I've said this, I want to stay connected with everybody and I want to be able to see what my friends are doing and whatnot on social media. That's how I stay involved with family that lives far away or friends that aren't in the area."
Social media is great for that. I don't really see that perspective just personally. I really enjoy not seeing someone for a while and then, we don't talk for a year and then we meet up a year later and it's a great meet. We didn't need to keep in touch over Facebook and message and small talk over social media. That meeting that we have, that weekend that we spend together, whether it's a friend, a distant family member, is one of the most memorable weekends because, we don't see each other or talk to each other that often. That's my perspective on it. I mean, that's just my own opinion on using that. To me, it's kind of an excuse, that's how I stay connected. And it is a good way to stay updated on, sicknesses, things like that. But man, the iPhone 10 has some pretty cool features called FaceTime and text message that work just as good for communicating on my end. So
that's a good perspective. It almost takes, the way you explained it, it's almost like it takes away the value of being present with someone when you do see them, because it's almost like you already know everything in their life. So then what do you talk about? You're already updated. So how do you create a conversation around being curious as to somebody and what they're doing and wondering truly about what they're doing in life and being there when you finally get together and meet?
So what is the point of social media? And you're what are the actual benefits? We just broke down staying connected. What do you think the benefits are?
There are benefits in creating a network,
mm-hmm.
and making it a positive, proactive network is important, I would say, whether just in life or in business. But you could, there's individuals that post some very interesting statistics or stuff that catches my attention as far as recommendations for other people like that, that give valuable information. I mean, that to me is a definite benefit of social media, and we're in the age of information. I mean, you got to be careful what you read and believe on social media, but sometimes I find myself reading something that does pop up on social media and then diving deeper into research elsewhere rather than just, oh, that's the truth. Just cross-referencing material from like social media and then like an actual statistic or research or something. So, and definitely there is obviously some value in staying connected with family, but a lot of my family that doesn't live here doesn't have social media, and I enjoy a phone conversation or even just getting, the whole posting your food on Instagram meals or whatever. Like my dad and I do that, but it's just cooler when it's like every Tuesday or whatever, we send each other and almost like compete a little bit for what's going to look tastier on the iPhone message or whatever.
I agree with the inspiration, the positivity that it can bring. That's a good point. But, according to these statistics, would you rather be spending, if you want to spend 2.2 hours on social media, if that makes you happy, if that fulfills you, then go ahead and do it. I don't think that's an issue. But if it is, like if you see that stat and if you sit on your phone for an hour and you feel bad about it, how do we limit that? Chad, you're really good at, just staying off social media unless it's for business purposes. How do you give some tangible advice on how to stay off of it?
I had a similar situation as you where I deleted my Facebook because it was actually just getting me in trouble. And then I looked at it and like thought, wow, I kind of reflected on it and like a lot of just kind of why are we so consumed by social media, I guess. And at first it was kind of like I wanted to be, I guess, an outlier and not have it and almost, I guess, prove a point, if that makes sense, of like, we can stay connected. I was in service at the time too, so a lot of times I would say I want it because then I can stay connected with my family and friends and stuff. And then, like I said, a lot of my family that they just don't involve themselves with social media, so I just call them instead. And I recently also started it back up, and now I just find myself, I'm just very aware. So the last time I deleted it, it was because I was so angry from some video that I saw, and I caught myself watching this video for like 5.5 minutes, however long this video was. And I just stopped, put my phone down, and was like, why am I letting this video that I have no control over and have no ability to change because it's already happened? There's nothing I can do about this, but it is totally ruining and consuming my day. The last 5 minutes, now I'm extremely angry because I watched this video, and now I have just ruined 5 minutes of my day and ruined my whole morning because I am in a bad mood now because of this. So then I deleted it and was like, became very aware. And then even the stuff we post that you just don't have control over it. So what's the point of angering yourself and losing control of your emotion for something that is completely untangible to you? Just besides your opinion to others, which sometimes is valuable, but most times in today's world is just another standpoint of aggression, right? So, and then now, in regards to my social media usage, I kind of compete with myself. So my phone will tell me how much screen time I use per week, and then it'll break it down by app so I can look at how much I used Facebook and Instagram and Spotify or whatever, texting. It breaks it down for me in minutes. And so like each week I have like whatever screen time, and I kind of just try and compete with myself to less and less each social media or just screen time in general.
We get so worked up over everything on social media, positive or negative. Like well, even when we put something out there, social media wise, I catch myself. I'll hop on there, check it, see how many likes we got, see who's commenting. Obviously, we want to know, engage with people if they're commenting, but it's a stimulator. There's proven research that what is the
feel good hormone?
Yeah, it releases what is it? Dopamine. Yeah, it messes with the brain, definitely.
Absolutely. So let's continue on from our. I feel like we always kind of head down the social media path, but I'm curious to know a little bit about how, I know you aren't real engaged barely at all with like TV, and that average is almost 3 hours of TV per day for people, and you yourself prefer, your time for reflection or whatever it might be, and then also reading. So you talked to even myself a couple years ago, not too long ago, I couldn't even fathom sitting down reading a book and wasting time reading a book or reading 10 pages per day. Where did you really find your transition with that? And now, how do you see it?
There's a lot of distractions in the afternoon. So you get done with work. A few years ago, I was getting done with work 3:30, and then everyone's doing things. There's all sorts of activities to do. There's work to be done, whatever it may be. There's so many distractions from 3 in the afternoon until 8 p.m. every day of the week. For me, it was getting up early was a non-negotiable that had to happen in order for me to work out. It started with me missing workouts at night because I was going and doing other things. So I switched it to mornings, getting up earlier. And then I think it was through social media that I saw, some millionaire mindset thing that, you got to get up in the morning and read. So kind of started following that trend and started reading, and it's just developed into a habit of I have to get up and I have to read and I have to train before I start my day. And that's the only way it's going to get done. Like you said, if you don't get up and get it done, it's either not going to get done in the afternoon or it's going to be a very half-hearted workout because, you only got 30 minutes and you got to get home, cook dinner and this and that. There's so many other things that are calling your name in the afternoon. So yours is very similar, right?
It's kind of like the same as I have to get my show in each week or whatever. I have to watch my show that comes on. Stay in cahoots with the series or whatever you want to say. Like, you need to know your show. To me, it's similar to that, just with reading. Like, I need to know this stuff. And they did a kind of a study that said if you dedicate 6 months to one topic, you will be in whatever percentage range of the highest achievers of that category. So let's say like nutrition. If you spent day in, day out researching nutrition for 6 months, you would be in the same category of the experts of that nutrition field, which there's so many books out there, and a lot of the books, even information, contradict what one thing or one author or one person, scientist might say, or doctor. But if you have the ability to understand all those perspectives and then cross-reference over, I feel like that's going to make the information much more valid when it comes down to it. When you were doing a lot of things in regards to your football and schooling, how did you best manage your time when it came to those things? Was there more of a focus on one thing over the other, or did you break it down each day so that you'd be effective at all things?
I wasn't the best student. I didn't put much time into class. And you go to a 4-year school, you have like 4 days of class, like 10 to 2 p.m. and a Monday night class for 3 hours. So the actual classroom time was minimal. the time outside of the classroom, I would procrastinate and then cram study. So I didn't spend much time on school. I definitely went to Stevens Point to play football. I did spend a ton of time, in football, in the weight room, stretching, film, recovering, and then a lot of time doing a lot of other stupid things. I mean, I wouldn't take any of it back, but obviously drinking was a part of college, just playing video games with the guys, did a lot of fishing and whatnot. But I am not going to sit here and say I had great time management. Maybe I had better than most, just balancing a little bit of school, football. I also worked a part-time job there, but my time management was not the best. I was all in on football in college, so.
Well, if you were all in on your workouts in football, you had definitely some time management with your workouts and structuring your training for yourself, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So did you find it valuable to structure out what you're going to be doing for your workouts each week and how much time you're dedicating to that by the end of the week?
Yeah, I definitely put everything I had into the workouts. So it was minimal time, 3 hours every day training, whether it be, light training, foam roll, whatever. It was 3 hours at the gym every single day, sometimes more, sometimes less, but usually, 3 hours was the average per day, non-negotiable. That's just what we did. So you have a lot better stories on managing time. Yeah, I mean, the military, the Marine Corps, I mean, they force you to follow their schedule. What did you learn about just time management? Tell us some cool stories from the Marine Corps that you can kind of reference to time.
There's a lot of different ways I could explain time management as far as the Marines go, but they do a very good job of saying be flexible. Like there is a structure, there's a schedule constantly. There's always something like down on paper. You have to be doing this, and even I spent time creating these schedules for the platoon and whatnot, but there is always something else. It feels like there is always something else that's going to come up. So it was almost like be as prepared as you possibly can, but also be ready to change all that you're prepared for last second. Because it's very well organized and very well structured, but there's also it's the military. Stuff comes up and happens, and people change their mind, and then that has to change due to a new obligation for a team or anything like that. So I mean, there's plenty of times where you'd have a gear list and you'd wait last minute to pack the gear list because there would be a change on the gear list, the night before. So it's like, I don't want to pack all this stuff nice and neat and then have to dump out my whole bag and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different times where you would almost kind of be very reserved in what you're doing, because you didn't want to have to change everything last second. So it was almost like you always had a plan, but you always had a secondary obligation that you knew would be coming down. So, I mean, there's plenty of times where we got back from training or running a mission or something, and it'd be like, okay, you're walking around and doing stuff. Now you get time to rest, and that was nice. Well, an hour into our rest, we're getting kicked awake or yelled at or something we got to go do something else. And it was just because that wasn't communicated that we just got back from something or whatever. They thought we were just, part of the group the whole time or whatever it might be. So again, it was, we would get a schedule and have very structured things, but be ready, essentially, always be ready to accept that secondary obligation. When I was one of my deployments, we were literally about to leave, and everyone was extremely excited. And was probably a couple hours before we were supposed to leave, and a bunch of stuff happened, and we ended up not leaving, and everyone was just extremely let down and upset, obviously, because we were ready to get back to good old US of A, and it was just like a giant letdown. So we tried it again a couple days later, and actually people began making the trip out of there towards home, and they had to come back because things just didn't work out. So it gave, if anything, it gave me a very good awareness and understanding of structure, time management, but also be flexible and be willing to make the change that needs to be made, and understand that as best as you can. And if you can't understand it, well, then just be quiet and go with it.
I definitely notice the flexibility part that transitions over in business, just your ability to adapt and, okay, let's get it done. We get an obstacle here. Roger that. Let's go. Let's just get to the end goal. Like, that is instilled in you through those 6 years. How fast did those 6 years go by?
After every endless, it felt endless training event that was weeks, after deployments, after things we set up front are going to take forever, and complain about while we were doing it, and those weeks into it, we'd get done, and it was the same conversation every single time. Oh, that wasn't so bad. Oh, that wasn't that long. And reflecting now, it seems like it flew by. 6 years, yeah, it flew by. But that's because I'm here, and I remember my brain's telling me all the great things that I miss about it and stuff like that. But if you put me back at year 2 again, I would, 4 more years sounds like, when you're 20 years old, 21 years old, 4 years is almost like you can't even see that far off, and I think that's with a lot of individuals. You can't see farther than a week out. So I would say it did not fly by for me, because while I was there was many times where I was like, holy moly, like, I got a while left. And now I reflect on it and think, obviously, like, wow, I've been out 2 years now. So when I began that journey, that was 8 years ago. And I think everybody says in every aspect of life is, that flew by. But when you think about it, and if you were back in that instance at that time, you're not thinking that it's flying by. You're like, holy, when is this going to end? Because it's like, I was sitting out in the desert training where you're not getting a shower and eating some delicious, appetizing beef taco and peach applesauce MREs with chunky peanut butter as your golden ticket to life out there. Time seems to be very slow at those points, but you get done, you take your shower, and you go, you and platoon or team go out and have a burger and whatnot at the end, and kind of reward the ending of training. At that point, you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Oh, that wasn't so long. It's false. I would say that's false, because 2 weeks ago we thought we were never gonna get out of that, doing that. So
time flies, but it doesn't.
Very true.
So looking back, and like you said, that's everyone's life. Like, you look back and like, oh my gosh, that was 6 years ago. That's crazy. But you put yourself back in that moment, and for you, a lot of times it sucked.
Yeah. There were some rough times where it was even a day where I thought the day was never going to end. And yeah, there's a lot of times where even just a few hours of maybe a run or a hike, and when you're on a hike and you start cramping, seconds seem like years, and every step seems like you're just, oh man, hiking and cramping is the worst. So to anyone that is going on a hike, prep yourself to not cramp, because That is the longest time of your life.
But that correlates to everyday life, though. I mean, how many us right now? How uncontent are we with our business? Majority of people are very uncontent, and they have just these goals, these visions of where they want to go with their career. They want to get a family, then they want to buy the house, then they want to, they want to retire. It's always the next thing. And I am the first person to say I'm guilty of this. I don't spend enough time being in that moment. The moment of, sitting here with you in this podcast, just being present, not worrying about, the 4:00 meeting that we have tonight. I'm here. I'm in this moment doing this podcast. I'm doing this hike, whatever it may be, just being present in that moment and not worrying, have the goals, have the vision, have the place where you're going, but really just being present in every single moment, enjoying that moment, enjoying the hike, enjoying the great times, the bad times. Regardless, you're going to look back and say, that wasn't that bad, or that was pretty great.
I agree with all of those things besides being present in the hike. There's not many times or many guys you could probably talk to and be like, wow, I just really want to be present in this 12-miler today.
One step at a time.
Right.
Pretty much like all you can do is like right foot, left foot. 10 more steps to that stick up there.
Yeah, sometimes you put your head down and push, and that's a good correlation you can do with life. Is sometimes you got to just look at one step to the next, and there's that stick up there. I got to make it to that stick, and then I can make it to that tree, and then I can make it to that rock. And I think you're kind of referencing it before, but like being in the moment is much easier when you enjoy things or things are exciting you. So it goes back to how we're spending our time with social media or YouTube or movies. If you're excited and it's thrilling you, if social media, what's the number one thing that gets people excited is anger. What's in a lot of our news and media is things that anger us. I mean, if you're in the moment with that, of course it's going to be like, I want more of that. But if you're in the moment in those hikes or in those workouts or in those times that aren't very fun or cool, that is kind of, I feel like that's where a lot of the productivity and growth comes from in our lives. So just being more aware and seeking that out even more has helped me. And then reflecting on it, you and I both, every conversation we have in this, every sentence I'm saying right now, every meeting we do, every phone call we make, every email, just literally everything, you and I are both constantly critiquing and questioning and reevaluating and debriefing what we do. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think it holds some validity in our interest in continually growing.
Yeah, I mean, it's you. It's who you are as a person. Every conversation you have, the way you dress. I mean, you've taught me a lot about that through the military, just being professionally dressed, clean shaven. These things go a long way, and people see they see how you look. They notice how you treat them, most importantly. That is the biggest thing. Why wouldn't you want to kind of reevaluate how that conversation went with that person, with your wife, your friend, whoever it may be, just constantly evaluating and like what am I, why did they react this way? Why did that anger them, when I asked that question? Sometimes, like you said, it may be to a fault where we're just overanalyzing every conversation. And not to say we're just in our own heads the entire, time we're talking with someone, but it is something that we're constantly looking at, one another, looking at ourselves and asking, am I being the person that I want to be ultimately? And it all comes back to, how am I spending every single moment of every single conversation of every single thing I do, those 24 hours I have in a day.
Yeah, it makes me think of being just being intentional in what you do, intentional in your conversations. If you're working in the yard, being intentional about what you're doing and not like picking up a stick in one corner and then walking completely to the other side to pull one weed and then walking back to the same side. So, being more urgent with how we're structuring things and managing things in life, I think is a good aspect to have, and being more perceptive and aware of others, and then having that intention with what we're doing. There was a lot of times where we would do different runs or different, we call them like CASEVAC drills, just part of training, part of physical training too, where they'd give you a time hack and you got to be at a certain point on the map or a certain point in the trail or a certain pickup location, and you have to meet your time hack. And if you didn't meet your time hack, then the time or the location then moved even further, which is like the last thing you want, right? So it gave us all an extreme sense of urgency and intention with what we're doing, because we didn't want to have to keep moving. And that's not just something that correlates directly to the military. I think that's why a lot of people find themselves being late to meetings or things like that, is because there's no really repercussion if we're late or if we miss a meeting. It's just kind of in the nature of society to be okay with being 20 minutes late to the meeting because they're going to wait for me to come to the meeting. I talked to my grandpa quite a bit, and he was spent time in the military, but he said back in his day, people just showed up on time, and on time being 15 minutes, 20 minutes early. They showed up early just out of respect for you, and respect that shows your time is valuable. I don't want to waste it, and I don't want you to be waiting on me. So that sense of urgency can be evaluated by a lot of people, and we can, obviously, I'm not saying I'm on time to everything, and there's things that I miss and whatnot, but being conscious of, if I have to be somewhere at 7:30, it doesn't mean leaving the house at 7:30. It's going to take me this amount of time, plus traffic, plus all the roads that are closed down right now that I cannot get around. There's just no possible way. It happened to me the other day. I was trying to get through to an appointment, and I took the wrong way, and I spent 20 minutes figuring out which ways not to take the next day, and was late. So, the next day I stayed as far away as possible as that route and made it on time.
And we missed an appointment today on that topic. That's just, we tried to jam in an extra thing this morning and ended up going over time and ended up having to reschedule an appointment. So super important to put a schedule down that you're going to be on time to very important meetings and respect other people's time.
How do you best mitigate that? How do you best mitigate the possibility of being late or the possibility of missing a meeting? What's your best approach?
I'm still working on it, trying to develop a system that works for me. I use my calendar a lot. Obviously it's different for, business owner. We got random stuff we're doing all day long, but I think just for people in general, if I got to be to the gym or if I got to be to a meeting, I got to be to church at 9:00, at minimum up an hour before you have to leave. I just feel like there's so many things you have to do. You shouldn't be getting up and going wherever you have to go to. That's just setting yourself up for failure. Hopping out of bed and going right to where you have to go, it just kind of puts you in a panic. I think an hour is enough time. Putting aside, not doing my workout, not doing my, the daily non-negotiables, 1 hour, like in between those appointments, it gives some flexibility, when other meetings go over, if, there's road construction, if I want to spend a little extra time on breakfast, I think setting apart an extra hour to get to something important is kind of my standard that I'm developing, and I'm sure it might change as life goes on. What about you?
I keep just getting up earlier, I guess, but I'm similar in the aspect of I kind of always remember not liking just like kind of jumping up and going because it just leaves you to forget things. You know, the quicker you're moving, the less intentional you are about stuff, the more you're going to forget. You're going to forget your lunch. You're going to forget your wallet. Most people will remember their phone. But you'll forget those things that you could have mitigated. Sometimes when I'm rushing out of the house, I forget a gym towel and then I got to wipe down with like paper towels. And it's just like, this could have been mitigated if I would have just set myself up. So again, it goes back to, you can create a plan, you can create a structure. I think that's great, but I think it's something simpler than that. And it's like, look at when you do laundry, right? When you are finished with your clothes in the dryer, you typically take them out, throw them in a basket, and either throw them on your bed or start folding them, right? Why don't people take the lint out right when the load is done, so that for the next time you go to throw your dryer in, you don't have that step of like taking the lint out of the dryer? So for me, it's become the night before all my stuff is packed, so that in the morning, that time I have to kind of mitigate anything I'm going to forget or mitigate the time that I'm going to use on useless things. All I have to do for the stuff that's just brainless stuff, like packing a gym towel or not forgetting business cards or a new pen or something, is just kind of setting myself up for the next day or for the next thing or for the next week, whatever it is, the best I can. So then when that does happen, when that unexpected does happen, that road construction does happen, well, since my truck is dead, the battery is dead, I now have a cushion, a window, a different approach to what I'm going to be doing, and now I've given myself time to make those obligations that I originally had happen.
So I want to go back, transition to, I believe you mentioned this stat on average lifespan.
Yes.
Is it 78 years, roughly?
71.
71.
Correct.
Okay. My Google's maybe I got a different year. So 71 years.
Worldwide average done by Reebok.
Okay, worldwide.
Correct.
Okay. I got U.S. citizen. So average lifespan of a U.S. citizen is 78 years.
Okay.
That seems like a long time from now for us. We're 26 years old. That probably seems like a long time away for most people. I've been breaking stuff down into kind of subcategories as far as life goes, and I want to share this with you. So that average lifespan, 78 years. There's really no research on it, but let's just say that you make it to 55 to 60 years old on being like active, truly, like, you can still run around, pick up heavy stuff. Would you say that that's fairly accurate? On average, 55 to 60?
Yeah.
So that's 25 years roughly from now, 25 to 30 years that we have to be active, to run around, to lift weights, to work on the house. 25 years. That still seems like a long time. Then we live in Wisconsin. We only have a few nice months out of the year. Right now we're in it in summer. That's 25 to 30 summers left that we have active. And when you start really breaking it down to how many summers I have, how many birthdays does my mom and dad have left? My parents are closing in. My dad's over 50. My mom's closing in on 50. How many, opportunities am I going to have to celebrate a Christmas with them? When you break it down into subcategories, it really, I don't do it enough, but the times when I do it, I'm very intentional about the time I spend with my dad, with my wife, the things I'm doing, my training. I'm thankful that I have this time to work out. I'm gonna do the things my body allows me to do at this time, because I know it's going to run out very fast. Just like you said, those 6 years, you look back and they flew by. It's, we're going to look back on this moment 10 years from now and be like, wow, that flew by. So what are your thoughts on kind of breaking it down? Have you ever done that?
I was just having this discussion with one of my family members, actually, and it's kind of, I would say, impressive how little we do that and take into account how much time we don't really have. If you think about what's 30 summers, what's 10 summers, what's 2 summers? I mean, not that long. So to me, it's impressive when those numbers are kind of broken down and brought to my attention, and it makes me have even more of a sense of urgency to get momentum somehow, some way, figure it out, and take action on stuff. I mean, I agree. There is always a better way to give your time to someone else as well. As far as that statistic with socializing and engaging and communicating with other people, there's value in having a conversation with somebody like my young cousin does better than probably me and 90% of other people I've engaged with, that they make the conversation about you and have a takeaway at the end. And it's not just talking about the hottest thing on the news that is the fad, or the greatest thing that's happening right now, and just stuff that seems to hold less value to me in a conversation. So breaking it down like that, it makes me really think about having a conversation and truly communicating. I told you the story. My dad says when you're communicating with somebody and the answer you're getting is yeah or yes, are you truly communicating? And I don't know. I think that it's like you said, and we agreed, it's situational dependent, and it's definitely dependent on the person you're talking with. But we can definitely make it more of a point to have a conversation of value with somebody when that time is deserved and respected with them.
So for the listeners, Chad comes from a background of very intelligent family members. A lot of his relatives are very successful in business. And besides the point of being successful in business, they're good people. I've met a lot of them. So a lot of I've been around them, and it's always valuable conversation. And that's where you get a lot of that from, Chad, is, I mean, you're always in it. You're always around it. You were raised with it. So I know you don't take that for granted, but it's oftentimes, people aren't surrounded by that. So I think it can be refreshing to hear, and just kind of a new perspective like that you've brought to my life, and, you're bringing to this podcast, of being just very intentional with conversation. And, there's a time for small talk. There's a time, catch up on whatever the Packers are doing. But then, let's talk about your dreams. Let's talk about, stuff that really matters on this life, and really just kind of digging deep into, that person's interest. So definitely really appreciate that about you, your family, and I mean, sharing it with me and then sharing it with our listeners as well.
I appreciate that, and always brings up a point. You don't just end the conversation with the success or the greatest thing that you did. You ask about, what the other person's perspective is. And I can think of a lot of times in the Marines, just being around other guys, we always almost competed to the next, oh, I did this, oh, I did this, oh, I did that. Or the probably the worst thing you can do is when you're in a conversation with somebody.
Interrupt you.
That. And I literally sat in a conversation and watched two people interrupt each other, talking about the importance of not interrupting each other and how annoying it is. But besides that, another facet of annoyingness in conversation is when, let's say I give you a compliment, right? I'm giving you a compliment. I'm acknowledging what you do, but then you just like add on to it again. Does that make sense? So like,
Yeah.
so if I'm acknowledging like, oh yeah, Zach, your arms are looking huge now on that new program, and your legs are looking solid or whatever.
And I go, yes, yeah, my bicep head has grown so much, man. A perfect example is exactly what you just did. I complimented you and your family, and you just flipped it like this right back to me. You didn't just sit and dwell on it. That's what you're talking about, right?
Well, kind of, but more or less adding to your own compliment. If I compliment you and you're adding to your own compliment, does that make sense? Where
so like I said with the bicep head, like I'm adding,
like I complimented you already, guy. I don't need to listen to
Right.
about how awesome and great your biceps are for you. I just acknowledge that. Now let's continue on. So to me, that's something I've worked on quite a bit and tried to acknowledge is if I get a compliment, thank them, acknowledge the compliment, and continue forward from that instead of giving the life story on how the biceps got that way, I guess.
That's a good point. So kind of back, and I just want to close on the perspective of time and how fast it's going to go by. When you break these things down, we're on this earth for such a short amount of time. And really when it comes down to it too, it really doesn't, like, most of the stuff we do doesn't really matter. Let me rephrase that. So most of the stuff that we do isn't going to be remembered. And I don't want to say that in a negative way, like, oh, you should just YOLO and, go crazy. But YOLO in the fact of we have a short life to live, where I'm already, if I live to be 100, I'm over a quarter of the way done, and it flew by like this. And, no one's going to remember my football career. No one's that's not going to be, people aren't going to be Googling Zach Velosky. But the people that I'm here with right now, they're going to remember me in their lifetime of how I treated them. That's the biggest thing that matters to me, is how I, treat other people and how I made them feel. But then in 100 years, we're all going to be dead anyways. So I also have that perspective of, I'm going to go out, I'm going to take risks, I'm going to take action, I'm going to go do things that, I want to accomplish. So I wanted to share that with you as well and kind of get your perspective on that.
So they're not going to be teaching about Zach Velosky and these what you could call them Velosky philosophies in grade school in the next 1,000 years.
Negative.
You never know. Maybe this podcast will get etched into stone and it'll be here for centuries. But yeah, I think that holds value, and I think that what you said is a very good point, and where people are too concerned with what they're going to be remembered by. They want to be the next Socrates, or they want to be, William Shakespeare and be known as giving the world a tsunami of value. But if you go, it's like if you sit there and say you're gonna win the lottery, I'm gonna be the next lottery winner. You're probably not gonna win the lottery. You're more likely to get struck by lightning or eaten by a shark, if you look at the stats. If you just dedicate your time to other people and growing your own knowledge in yourself, and just providing value and creating momentum, taking action, there is going to be conversation of you being successful in whatever facet, if it's with your family or with it being for the next 1,000 years. So I think people get caught up in getting worried about, I'm not bringing this tidal wave of proportion and value and change to the world for the better, especially in now today's day and age. But I definitely think people should. Like, I'm not saying don't sit in your room and be a hermit and try not to bring value to people. But if you're just only concerned with that, like, what happens when that, in 6 months that doesn't happen, or in 2 years that doesn't happen? either going to give up or just continually disappoint yourself. You just got to let it grow and continue. And eventually, if that's truly what's supposed to happen with what you're doing and you're truly providing value, people are going to realize it and know.
Absolutely. Life is short. So I want to close with this on that topic. Just a short story. You may have heard this before. It's pretty popular on the web. I came across it via Facebook, social media. Thank you very much for this.
There you go. Coming around. We're bringing them around.
So it's about a dad and his son, and just kind of give you some perspective. Son asks the dad, "Can I ask you a question?" Dad says, "Sure. What is it?" "How much money do you make an hour?" Dad says, "That's none of your business. Why do you ask such a thing?" "Son, I want to know. Please tell me, how much do you make an hour?" Dad says, "If you must know, I make $100 an hour." "Daddy, may I please borrow $50? The father was furious and said, "If the only reason you asked how much I make an hour is so you can borrow some money or buy a silly toy or some other nonsense, then you march yourself straight to your room and go to bed. Think about why you're being so selfish. I work hard every day for my money." The little boy quietly went to his room, shut the door. The father sat down and started to get even angrier about the little boy's questions. How dare he ask such questions only to get some money from his dad? After about an hour or so, the man had calmed down and started to think. Maybe there was something he really needed to buy with that $50, and he really didn't ask for the money very often. The man went to the door of the little boy's room and opened the door and asked his son if he was awake, and the boy replied that he was. Dad says, "I've been thinking, maybe I was a little too hard on you earlier. It's been a really long day at work, and I took out some of my aggravation on you. Here's that $50 you asked for." Little boy flung up, smiling, and said, "Oh, thanks, Dad." Then he reached under his pillow, and he pulled out some crumpled up bills. The father saw that the boy had already had some money, and he started getting mad again. As the boy slowly started to count out his money, his dad asked, "Why do you want more money if you already have a pile? If you already have a pile of it under your pillow?" Son says, "Because I didn't have enough, but now I do. Dad, I have $100 now. Can I buy 1 hour of your time? Can you please come home early tomorrow so I can spend time with you?" Father was crushed. He put his arms around his little son, and he begged for forgiveness.
And that's why it's important to have perspective of everybody's time. So, thank you for listening. We ask that you please share the podcast with anyone who could use a new perspective on time. And again, we have these conversations not because we're preaching it and saying this is what you need to do. It's more or less like reminding Zach and I why, we're not by no means the best at time management, but maybe some of the perspectives we share with each other bring value to you, and we really hope they do. So again, just continuous reminder, being aware and intentional about what we're doing, and then saying that helps us really hold true to that. So find us on Facebook, Iron Alliance, and teamironalliance.com. We'll have our podcast on it as well. We are also on Spotify and the podcast app. So head over to those, give us a like, share if you would please, and write a review. Give us a 1-star or a 5-star. No in-betweens. You like it, you love it, or you hate it. And hey, that's how life sort of is, right? It's either all or nothing, and I'll quit rambling. So thank you, and have a great rest of your day.